A New York landlord says bad tenants are to blame for rats, roaches, and graffiti in his apartment building, and there's nothing he can do. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting story for you today. And once again, it's coming out of New York. Okay, so don't be surprised that the landlord doesn't have much that they can do in this situation. Okay, they basically put on the landlord the burden of taking on these tenants and being unable to evict them because guess what? The tenant applied for the rental assistance. Now, does the tenant actually qualify for rental assistance? Who knows? But while that application is in process, the landlord is unable to evict this awful tenant who is basically destroying his building, not paying rent, and making life miserable for the other tenants who still live there and who do still pay their rent. So, hey, this situation isn't just bad for the landlord, it's also bad for the other tenants. That's why I always say, respect that small landlords, we don't have unlimited budgets. We don't have the ability to just keep paying all of our bills when the tenants stop paying rent. So when the government, they put these ridiculous rules in place that say, hey, we can't evict these tenants, well, guess what's going to happen? Buildings are going to fall into disrepair just like this building did. And they're going to have these sort of issues. And, we can call the police, but there's nothing we can do. And if the tenant won't let us up into the unit, we can't even get the repairs done. This is how ridiculous all of this is. So, just keep this in mind when you're out there and they're talking about, oh, we want to put these new rules and regulations in place. Even if you're a tenant watching this video, keep this story in mind because this could be you living underneath this rat and roach infested crap hole that some other tenant has created. But before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you're a landlord, have you ever dealt with a tenant who basically created a pest or, destroyed your property, created pest issues, okay? Now, I certainly have. I think all landlords who, have been in the business for any sort of time, they've dealt with tenants who are not the cleanest, okay? They've dealt with tenants who have basically created the problem and now there's, an issue. Now in my building in Tucson that I used to own, I had a tenant in there, dirty, they didn't keep the place clean, and they ended up with a roach infestation. And because the building was a duplex style building, well, the roaches, they went through into the unit for my other tenant, right? And so, I'm out there and we're spraying the place and, trying to keep it clean. But, what are you supposed to do when the unit is full of trash and garbage and the people who live there are so nasty that they refuse to keep the place clean? Okay, the roaches just kept coming back. Eventually, I ended up having to evict that tenant. So, I did get that tenant out of there. And then I ended up spending thousands of dollars doing repairs and cleanup of that unit after I got them out of there. So that just tells you that, I know exactly what this landlord is going through. The only difference is, I was able to get that tenant out of there. In this story, the landlord was not. So the story, it's coming from news12newjersey.com, and it says, they are causing this problem. Yonkers landlord blames bad tenants for pest infestation, poor conditions. A Yonkers landlord says a few bad tenants are to blame for the rats, roaches, and graffiti and leaks at a Lawrence Street complex. Jason Stricker says some tenants have been attracting pests and it's impacting other tenants. One tenant allowed News 12 into her fourth floor apartment to see the damage. The landlord says the tenant upstairs from the fourth floor apartment won't let anyone in to fix a leak, so it's causing damage to other units. Yeah, this is a big issue, okay? Now, I don't know about anyone else, right? But I can, in the places where I'm a landlord, I can give them notice, a 24-hour notice that, hey, I've got this leak or whatever that needs to be repaired immediately. I am coming in. If I have to bust the door down, I am coming in. I'm going to give notice, okay? I'm going to beat on that door. If you're not home, we're just going to walk on up in there to fix it because, and also in an emergency situation, like if there's a flood or something and we need to get in there, you do have legal rights as a landlord. Now, I don't know New York laws, right? But, in most places, in all the states that I invest in, that is the case where I can still get into those units, and I'm hoping that that's the case here. Now, if there is a leak in this landlord, that sounds like a pretty serious issue. Can cause structural damage, can cause huge problems for your other tenants. You have to get up in there. Okay, so this tenant would not be able to stop me from going up in there, even if I have to literally tear the door down. Okay, now they could stop me from going in there if they have a gun. Okay, but I wonder if you're able to get the police or someone to go up there with you to knock on that door to let the tenant let you in. Okay, but whatever the case is, whatever your state law is, follow the state law. But you should not allow your building to become completely destroyed by a tenant who refuses to let you in because of a leak or something, and destroy your other tenant units, etc. Okay. Stricker says other tenants have garbage and grease everywhere, making the pest problem worse. They're causing this problem, says Stricker. They're not even cleaning. You see, the apartments are full of grease and food. They're basically feeding the rodents. It's a really bad situation. Stricker says he has been trying to evict the bad tenants who also have not paid rent for years. Stricker says he has filed eviction papers for as many as 20 tenants living among his 11 buildings. 2 of them live at the Lawrence Street apartment complex. So yeah, he's got 2 tenants in this building who are not paying rent, and it's an 11-unit building. So that is a very significant. I mean, that's nearly 20% of your tenants who are not paying rent in this one building. So on top of that, he's talking about, hey, these tenants aren't clean. They've got grease and trash and grime, and the bug problem is only going to get worse and worse. And the only way to really take care of that bug problem would be basically you got to empty the entire building out, clean the entire place out, fumigate it, etc., in order to kill all the bugs inside, and then move the tenants back in afterwards. And I just don't see all of that happening. I just don't see it. So, he says he's unable to evict these tenants and they haven't paid rent for years. I'm sure it's because of all of the tenant protections due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the eviction moratoriums that were in place in New York over the last few years. So, yeah, this landlord is just getting completely screwed. And I don't blame him for being upset one bit. An employee in the Yonkers City Court Clerk's office says if a tenant has applied for assistance through the state's Emergency Rental Assistance Program, then that petition needs to be processed before an eviction can be considered. There's no way. I mean, what can I do? Can I call a cop and tell them that they vandalized? What are they going to do? Nothing. I have to clean it. I have to fix it. It's my problem, says Stricker. And he's right. It is his problem, okay? He has to clean it. He has to fix it. Unfortunately, the police are not going to help you in this situation. It's considered a civil matter pretty much everywhere. So, this isn't just a New York thing. This could easily happen elsewhere. Like I said, I've had the bad tenant who didn't clean and didn't pay me rent. Now, I was able to evict. Now, if this tenant applied for the New York Rental Assistance Program, money and can't be evicted right now, then he's just out of luck. And unfortunately, this sort of thing, it's just taking way too long, especially in places like New York.